This is Math 8, Section 4.5, Real World Problems, Linear Equations. So first of all, we're going to explain slope and y-intercept in the context of real world problems. So basically we have B and M in a real world situation. What do these things actually mean? Okay, these things actually tell us a linear relationship. So the relationship between quantities is a linear relationship. In the real world, this applies to us because we can see which things are represented on the same line. So think about a graph where your line goes like this. Alright, any 2 points have a linear relationship because they are on the same line. Okay, and there's going to be a constant that can help you to relate them. So think about between this point and this point, there's a change in not only x, but there's a change in y. So think of it as change in x over change in y. Linear relationship, this is between points. The change in x over the change in y between any 2 points on the line. So therefore, if we had a graph that told us x and y 0, 3, 1, and 7, we could find the linear relationship between them by going the change in x, which would be 3 minus 0, over the change in I wrote that wrong. It's y over x. Change in y, because y represents rise, whereas x represents run. So 7 minus 1 over 3 minus 0. So notice I did the second minus the first. You could also do the first minus the second. And this linear relationship, what we end up getting is 6 over 3 equals 2. This is the same thing as slope. So slope is the typical mathematical thing we find. Linear relationship is the real world context of where you would see that. In example 16, we're going to explain the meaning of slope and y-intercept in real world problems. So we talked about the rate of change, and that is how it's related to slope. Okay, here. A swimming pool with full loads holds a certain amount. When the drain is open, the amount of water in the pool drains out at a constant rate. The graph shows the amount of water, y gallons, in the pool, x hours after the pool is opened. So find the vertical intercept of the graph and explain what information it gives about the situation. So the vertical intercept here, vertical is a line going up and down, and it's y. So it's like our y-intercept. It's at 648,000. So if that's the amount of water, and this is our initial point, alright, so when time is 0 and it starts, there's this many gallons. So that would tell us the amount of gallons when the pool is full is 648 gallons when pool is full. B says, find the slope of the graph and explain what information it gives about the situation. The slope of the graph, we can do y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, and this is how we find our slope. So let's pick 2 points. First point is going to be, point 1 is going to be 248,000. So therefore that's x1, that's y1. Point 2 is going to be 0 and 648,000. So here, this is x2 and y2. Put these into our equation. That gives us 648,000 minus 248,000 divided by 0 minus 200 equals 400,000 over negative 200. So notice this is negative, so we're going to have negative slope. And we can see that in the graph that it's negative. So our total is going to be negative 2,000. It's simplified. That's our slope. What does it say about this? Well, it says that a certain amount of gallons, it goes down per every hour that passes. So it's a rate. It's a constant rate. So if the slope were to be steeper, the same amount of gallons would have happened in a less amount of time. If it were to be shallower, the same amount of gallons would have drained in a longer time. So depending on the slope, that determines the rate or how fast the water was drained. And because it's negative, you can see that gallons are going down. So rate of drainage is what it represents. Try this on guided practice 1. Let's do example 17. Compare two different linear relationships from their graphs. So Joanne and Chris are salespeople. Each of them earns a fixed monthly salary. They also earn an additional percent of the amount in dollars that they sell that month. So the total monthly amount, Y dollars, each salesperson earns depends on how much in X dollars he or she sells. So they both work for the same company, we assume, says they're both salespeople, and they receive the same salary, but they receive different amounts based on how much they sell. So they both start here, and they go like this. So find the fixed monthly salary. So they must be different ranks of salespeople, or perhaps in different businesses. Like I said, I'm not sure about that. But depending on where they start, so if their sales are 0, they already get a certain amount of income. So Joanne will get 2,500. Chris would get 1,500, even if they didn't sell anything. So A, Joanne, 2,500, and Chris, 1,500. Now B says both Joanne and Chris earn a percent commission. Who earns greater commission rate? So to determine that, we would look at the slopes, right? So for each dollar that they sell, they get a certain amount of earnings. So if Chris earns $2,500, okay, his earnings go up to 2,000, so he must have gotten 500 extra dollars for that $2,500 that he sold. So that's his commission. All right, the rate is compared to the slope, so we can see that because Chris's goes up faster, the slope is steeper, his rate of commission is better than Joanne's, not Joanna, sorry, who has to earn this much just to go up by 500. So you can see that these slopes are different, therefore Chris has a higher rate of commission. C, find each person's rate of commission. So now that we know who has the highest, we actually have to determine them. So for Joanna, first let's pick our point 1 and our point 2. X1, Y1, X2, and Y2. So now we could put that into our equation. M equals Y2 minus Y1, X2 minus X1. One over 20 is our simplified slope for Joanna. And that's what it told us to find. So in order to figure out a fraction, fraction to percent, you simply have to to go from fraction to percent, you multiply by 100%, and that will give you the fraction as a percent. So we take 120 multiplied by 100%, that becomes 100% over 2, which becomes 50 over 1, which is equal to, oh sorry, that's a 20, that's why. 10 equals 5%. So she gets 5% commission, whereas Chris, if we pick his 2 points on here, M is going to be equal to y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, equals 1 over 5. We want that to go into a percent, so we multiply by 100%, which is going to be equal to 100% over 5 equal to 20%. And that's how much commission Chris gets. So as we can see up here, we said Chris got a higher commission. Well, it's true. He gets 20% commission. Joanna only gets 5% commission. Try Guided Practice 2. Example 18, last example. Let's compare 2 different linear relationships given one graph and one equation. Brittany and Scarlett each have a coin bank. Brittany starts with a certain amount of money and adds the money at regular intervals. Scarlett starts with a different amount of money and takes money out over time. The amount of money, y dollars, in Scarlett's coin bank after x weeks is given by the equation y equals negative 24x plus 120. So that is Brittany's coin bank. The graph shows the amount of money in Brittany's coin bank after x weeks. So you can see she started with this much. She kept adding. By the end of time, 5 weeks, she had 120. So find the vertical intercept of Brittany's graph and explain what information it gives about the situation. So like I just said, at time 0, that's how much she had, so she began with $20. B, find the slope of Brittany's graph and explain what information it gives about the situation. Let's pick 2 points, point 1, point 2, just the beginning and the end. So M is going to equal y2 minus y1. Bottom is going to equal x2 minus x1, and that gives us 100 over 5, which is equal to 20. And that is M. It tells us from the situation the rate at which she's adding money. Basically, it means if this is rise over run, it rises $20 every time it runs 1 week. So every week, she is adding in $20. See, is Brittany adding money at a faster rate, or is Scarlett taking out money at a faster rate? Well, we know the equation for Scarlett. And it is y equals negative 24 x plus 120. So we could draw the graph and we could see which line looks like the slope is steeper, or we could make the equation from Brittany's and say which one actually has a steeper slope. Okay, so we found the slope is 20, and it started at 20. So here's our two equations. Now, here's the slope for both. This one is negative, but this one is positive. We don't have to worry about if it's becoming positive or, oh wow, positive or negative. We just want to know which is steeper. So determine the number with the biggest absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 24 is 24. The absolute value of 20 is 20. Therefore, this one has the bigger absolute value, so it is steeper. Therefore, Scarlett is losing money faster than Brittany is adding in money. All right, try this on guided practice 3.